This is just us, so record or not record, I don't care.
Yeah, if it's a good session. Okay, I wanted to talk about tools of recovery, mostly because we've got the holidays coming up, and tools of recovery are good not only for addicts, they're good for non-addicts, partners of addicts, loved ones of addicts, anybody with a pulse really can benefit from these tools at the holidays, because the holidays are the most joyous and stressful time of year. Emphasis on stressful. Particularly when there's an addiction in the household or a recent addiction in the household, there's all that stress, and then the holiday stress is dumped on top of it. So it can be really rough. So I wanted to talk about some tools that you can use. You can use these all the time in your life, addiction recovery, but they're especially useful at the holidays. So the first one I want to talk about is bookending. And bookending is exactly what it sounds like. Most of us, most of the triggers we face in life, whether it's a trigger toward addiction or a trigger toward strong emotions, they kind of blindside us. But some of them we can see coming way in advance. Thanksgiving dinner at my mother's house. I can see that one coming way in advance. So rather than just going in there and gritting my teeth, I can bookend it. I can call my sponsor or my therapist or a close friend in recovery before I walk in the door of my mother's house and say, hey, Tami, I'm at my mother's, I'm going in, it's going to be crazy. And we can talk about real quick about, tools that I might use while I'm there, things I might do to stay sober, is it okay for me to take a break and just excuse myself for 10 or 15 minutes, things like that. And then after Thanksgiving dinner, I would call and say, hey, Tami, I made it through dinner. I didn't pick up the wine, even though my mother pushed it in front of me 16 times. And we can talk about, how things went, what went right, what went wrong, what I might want to do differently next time. And just that bookending, the before and after call, keeps me accountable while I'm there. And it keeps me not only not drinking or not using or doing all the other things I shouldn't do, but not screaming and yelling and just being a horrible person, which I'm also perfectly capable of. So I like bookending. Halts. Tami, you know HALT, don't you? You want to explain HALT?
I do, actually, and I added an S. So it's hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and S is stressed. I added that years and years ago because I know for sure when I'm stressed, I'm also I don't have the bandwidth. So hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and feel free to add stressed if you'd like.
And with angry, I also throw anxious in. So I
that's good.
HAALTS. So HALT. But we just usually when something is amiss in my life, I can pause and do a little self-check. And the easiest self-check is HALT or HALTs. When is the last time I ate? Am I feeling anxious or angry? Am I feeling lonely right now? Am I tired? Am I stressed out? And 9 times out of 10, the answer to one of those questions is going to be yes, and often more than one. So, a candy bar, a quick phone call to somebody who's supportive, just taking 5 minutes to just do some deep breathing, things like that. But the check-in is what prompts us to take contrary action. So I highly recommend HALTs or HALTs. I'm going to start pluralizing it as well.
Well, yeah. And if I can plan ahead too, there are some days when I've got a packed schedule and I know it's going to be more stressful. So then I'm intentional about, checking in with myself. If I can't take care of the stressed, because that's just going to be how it is, I can make sure that I'm not hungry, angry, or anxious or lonely or tired. I can do those things. The other night I woke up way too early and I could not get back to sleep. And I knew that was going to be, okay, I'm a little more tired today. I'm going to have to watch that, so just being aware of that and understanding my vulnerabilities. And if I can take care of all the rest of them, I can probably handle one, but man, I'm a mess if I'm, dealing with multiple, if I'm tired and hungry and stressed out at the same time, that's far more challenging.
Yeah. I know some people who set their alarm to go off at noon and 3 p.m. just so they pause and they do kind of a self-check to see where they are in their day. And then they can do a 10-step if they need to. We'll talk about 10 steps some other day. Another tool, this is a real really a sex addict tool, but I think it applies to everybody. We call it the 3-second rule. As a sex addict, when you feel triggered, if you see somebody that triggers you, so yes, I'm about to get photobombed by the beast. So once you recognize that you've had a triggering thought, you give yourself 3 seconds to turn away from it. And there are a couple ways to turn away from it. Dr. Rob likes to say that the best way to do it is to picture that person as someone's, let's say I see Tami and I find myself objectifying her. I give myself 3 seconds to remember that she's married happily, she's a mother, she's someone's daughter, she's a friend, she's a good person, you know. So instead of objectifying her, I see the person that I know her to be, or the person that she might be if I don't know her. And for sex addicts, that's a really great way to do it, is to humanize the person you're objectifying. For other people, and even for sometimes for addicts, I prefer to just refocus. You know, I find myself objectifying Tami, and instead of continuing with that, I make out my shopping list, or I wonder who's going to get drafted first in the NBA draft tonight, or, you know, things like that. Just focus on something else, but give myself 3 seconds to play with the thought and then refocus on something else. And, you know, if you're sitting at, you know, Christmas Eve dinner and, you know, your mother-in-law says something horrific, you can be really angry for 3 seconds and then realize it's Christmas Eve dinner. I can play into this, or I can recognize that she's a flawed human being, and I can focus on the fact that I want to be here and have a nice time with my family. So I think the 3 second rule, or refocusing, whatever we want to call it, is very applicable to all of us at the holidays.
One of the things that I do with that, and it's really hard, particularly initially when somebody is like, you know, we all have those people in our life that we just go, okay, I'm gonna have to, you know, prepare. But if I can wish them a kind blessing. I want good things for them. I want, you know, it actually helps me humanize even, you know, take sex addiction out of the just annoying people like you're talking. I hope your mom isn't watching this video. I was like, you know, so
my poor mother. She's actually much nicer than I make her out.
I know. Yeah. Well, and everybody's, because I was like, I've got, you know, I like immediately thought of 2 people that I just, they're very challenging for me to be around. So, you know, I limit the time, but when I'm in the moment, if they're doing and saying stuff that I just want to, you know, for me, if I can somehow go, you know, I wish them, you know, goodness, I wish them light, I wish, you know, good things for them, whatever, I wish them joy and happiness and all that. And then it at least refocuses me. It doesn't change the stuff that's coming out of their mouth that I still go, oh, but at least for the moment, for me, I'm in a more serene place.
Okay, I got a couple more, but start typing your questions into the Q&A feature about tools of recovery of the holidays, or anything that's on your mind tonight. I like questions. My next tool, and this is really my favorite tool, Tami. What's my favorite tool?
Gratitude.
Thank you. She knows me. I love the gratitude list. You know, there's research in this, and, you know, I've talked about this with David. We seem to talk about it at least once a month, but I'm going to talk about it again. Renee Brown, from, is she University of Houston or Texas? I can never remember. I think it's Houston.
We'll get it wrong. So let's just say she's from Houston, Texas.
Somewhere in Texas. She was interested in why some people are happier than others. So she started doing some research, and she did in-depth interviews with more than 10,000 people. She and her grad students did these in-depth interviews, and they found one difference between people who generally self-identify as happy and people who generally self-identify as unhappy. And that one and only difference they found between those 2 groups of people was that happy people are grateful for what they have. It doesn't matter what they have. They could be rich, they could be poor, they could be black, they could be white, they could be Republican or Democrat or whatever. If they're grateful for what they have, they tend to be very happy. If they're not grateful, they tend to focus on what they don't have. Grateful people are more likely to recover from an addiction. They're more likely to overcome betrayal in their relationship. They're more likely to beat depression. They're more likely to beat anxiety. Anything life throws in their path, they are more likely to beat it. They live longer. They're happier. They just every facet of life, gratitude impacts it. So when I'm having a bad day, I pause, I go into my bedroom, I sit in my little meditation chair, and I do a 10-item gratitude list, because I cannot be grateful and unhappy at the same time. I just can't. So, and I do it as part of my 11th step, which is my conscious contact with the higher power. I do a 10-item gratitude list every day, which was really hard in early recovery. But it gets much easier as we go along. I was doing things like the sun came up today, and I have clean air to breathe, and there's running water in my house. Those things were on my gratitude list. And you'd be surprised what things come on your gratitude list. Flashing lights and handcuffs makes it onto my gratitude list once in a while, because that's what drove me into recovery. Without that, I would still be the really unhappy addict that I was 20 years ago. So.
And I do know him. Anytime I see a gratitude quote, I forward it to Scott, because I know that that's meaningful to him. But I'm the same way. I had a really hard time in early recovery, but for me also, if I'm grateful, I can't be miserable. One of the things I think that it's really easy for addicts to focus on, I can't, like the inner circle, when we're talking about the different circles. Well, the inner circle is the don't do stuff, but they're missing all the outer circle that is the do stuff. And like all the stuff that's in my do list, I gave up very little, like I gave up the really horrible things that were causing me all kinds of problems. It had long since given up being fun. And I have amazing people. I have fun in life. I get to do and be, someone that I could never have imagined. I couldn't have been that person without the tools of recovery. So gratitude is huge on my list. This morning, as I was thinking, I am incredibly grateful to what the program has given me, and it's not stuff, it's the relationships and the integrity that I can have with myself. But I was standing, I was just going grateful, I said grateful probably 40 times, because I was just like, I felt like I could do a cartwheel, which I can't, but I wanted to do a cartwheel because I'm so grateful. And, like that's a joy-filled thing, because of recovery.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing up the inner versus the outer circle, because and David has talked about this before. If I say don't think about pink elephants, what's the first thing you do? You think about pink elephants. So instead of as a recovering person, or even as a person who wants to go to Thanksgiving or Christmas and behave like a nice, sane, loving human being, despite the many faults of our relatives and friends and family.
And us.
Yeah, and the addicts. But if you're not an addict, this still applies. If I'm sitting there focused on, don't rip into my mother because she's pushing wine in front of me. As soon as she pushes wine in front of me, I'm going to rip into her. But if I'm focused on the things that I can do, like I can engage with my sister's kids and catch up with my sister, and see how my father's health is, and help my mother in the kitchen, and be of service, then I'm much more likely to do those things. And particularly for addicts, if I'm focused on, I can't drink, I can't use, I can't act out, guess what I'm focused on? I'm focused on drinking and using and acting out. If I'm
feeling sorry for ourselves,
if I'm instead focused on my outer circle activities and behaviors, I can hang out with friends, I can go to movies, I can go to the gym, I can work in the yard, I can do all these things that I really enjoy. Sobriety is much easier, and just behaving like a rational human being is much easier.
Well, and when we were acting out, we didn't have time to hang out with friends or go for a bike ride, or we didn't do those things. Yeah. We were very focused on other things.
I had no friends or hobbies or interests left at the end of my addiction. My world was very, very small.
Very small. Yep. Agree.
So, other tools that can work. during the holidays or anytime, journaling is always a good one. It's a great way to get your head on straight. There's something magical about writing it down that helps us not only understand what we're thinking and feeling, but process what we're thinking and feeling. You know, any kind of a support group, this one, something in person, whatever it is going to help. There's something magical about sharing, you know, with another person. You know, there's the saying, sharing your joy doubles it, sharing your sorrows cuts them in half. And I believe that to be true. Prayer, meditation. I know Tami meditates. I don't. I can't sit still that long, but she does it. Can you tell us about meditation?
Well, yes, and I mean, I have an active meditation. Like when I'm running and stuff, like it's kind of a zone thing. So it isn't just me sitting. I really actually suck at, you know, I'm very distracted, so I have to keep going. Just let the river flow over you in order to get. I'm not great at that, but I do, you know, like I am mindful. I do a lot of mindfulness things, including being intentional about, you know, looking for beauty outside and things like that. So,
yeah. So another good one, being of service, whether it's in 12-step recovery, in your home, if somebody's hosting a meal, help them in the kitchen, offer to do the dishes, whatever. It just tends to help me, you know, I know that being of service tends to make me feel a part of rather than apart from. And, you know, I used to go to parties and I hated them. I would just 5 minutes, I felt so alone and I wanted to leave and everybody's judging me. And somebody finally said, okay, find somebody who looks more uncomfortable than you feel and go make them feel comfortable. And that was magic. It was kind of amazing. And then Tami also mentioned anything, if you're a sex addict and you have your circle plan or your boundary plan, anything in the outer circle or outer boundary.
Well, and you've talked about beyond sex addiction. You know, I think that circle plan, like really focusing on, like, I think it's a great analogy. The stuff that I'm giving up is the really small stuff. The stuff that's a problem is the middle stuff, but the good stuff is the outer. I mean, look how much bigger it is. Yeah. That, you know, so if you look at it even from that visual standpoint, we gain so much, you know, by focusing on the good stuff.
Yeah, and you know, and the circle plan was developed. I don't know if Pat Carnes developed it or SAA developed it or one of the programs developed it, probably one of the programs. But I use it with my AA sponsees, and you know, Kristen Snowden and I are doing a book about the 12 steps for non-addicts, and we use it as an exercise for non-addicts. You know, it shows up in that book as an exercise to help non-addicts gain clarity about how they want to live their lives. So great plan.
So one of the things, and I realized this some point into COVID, is all the things I learned in early recovery, all those things that you were talking about are the things I'm leaning into during COVID. So they work no matter where you are on the recovery spectrum. You know, this is the stuff that if I quit doing this stuff, you know, I'm miserable. And so even if I'm not acting out in my chosen acting out, I'm still not happy. I'm not living in serenity. I'm not living, you know, in the zone that I want to live in, you know. And that's, to me, recovery is about finding joy. If I'm going to be miserable in recovery, then what's the point, you know? So I think that that's important. Somebody asked about journaling. And so Scott is a writer, and I write a few blogs here and there, but that's about it. So this question is a great one. What is your process of journaling? Do you just sit down and write, or like, do you kind of have a topic? How do you suggest, or I'm sure there's many different ways to do it. So
when my sponsees ask me that question, I suggest that they buy, you know, a journal, one of those empty books, and they sit down and fill up a page with whatever pops into their head. And it's really interesting. A lot of times they'll bring it to me when we meet, and they'll say, I can't believe I wrote this. And they read it to me, and it's like something really profound about their life or their addiction that had never occurred to them before. But it's that free flow, but we also slow down enough in the writing process for our thoughts to catch up to us in a way that doesn't happen if we're just thinking or just talking.
Or typing. So
yeah.
I heard you being intentional. You've got a paper and pen and you're writing. So it's not, oh, I can type this on a keyboard.
Yeah, I mean, some people journal with the keyboard. I have always preferred to journal longhand, but that's me. Whatever works, but it's I think it's a free flow of just thoughts and feelings.
And that may be, it may be just like I'm feeling, joy. Today I'd be writing about gratitude, like, but it, I mean, it doesn't have to be just, negative things. It could be, discoveries of, something really profoundly good too. So I think, that's a good measure and, of where you're at. So. Okay, we've got a couple questions. Do you have recommendations for how to do and what to discuss in couples check-ins during a time of separation or no contact in between the check-ins? I'm the partner of an SA. We are about 6 months after discovery and have not gone through disclosure yet.
You want to take that one first?
Well, I'm kind of, so what I don't hear is professionals in this mix. So ideally you are each working with a qualified trained professional who should be helping guide that process. They would know you specifically. And like 6 months is a long time. Well, it depends. Again, if you're not working with a qualified professional, then, I would not do disclosure until you have that, worked out. But that also gets to be kind of a, you're in a time of separation, no contact. What's the plan? Being in the in-between, well, for me sucks, so what is the plan? When is there going to be disclosure? Is it set up with professionals to do a formal disclosure? But I really would talk to the qualified therapists that are helping you, because they'll know you and know your situation and how best to handle that. But it just feels like it's very distant, and I don't know how you're going to repair something if there's zero contact. What are your thoughts, Scott?
Well, it kind of depends on what stage they're at. I think you hit that on the head. The guys who come into our treatment center tend to be very early in the process, and if they call or text with their spouse or partner, news, sports, weather, keep it superficial. Now is not the time to have deep discussions about the long-term future of our relationship, especially not without a therapist there to mediate the conversation. It's later on, and maybe you're in a therapeutic separation. Usually with the therapeutic separation, seriously, there are boundaries set by the therapist. The therapist will help you set boundaries. These are the things we're going to talk about in our check-ins. These are the number of check-ins we're going to have. This is the time of day we're going to do them, the day of the week we're going to do them. Really strict boundaries. Obviously we have to communicate about the kids and things like that, but maybe over the phone or via text is not the best time and place to have a conversation about, are we going to stay together long term, or things like that. When you're a little further progressed, and you're trying to rebuild intimacy, when both parties are actively in some kind of supported process, and the addict is staying sober and being rigorously honest, that's when you start doing more intimate check-ins. Like, here's the best thing that happened to me today. Here's the worst thing that happened to me. Here's what I'm feeling right now. And those often take place in person, where you're looking each other in the eye as an intimacy building exercise. And often that leads up to reintegrating sex into the relationship, because generally your betrayed partner probably doesn't want to, the betrayed partner often doesn't want to have sex, and sometimes the addict doesn't feel ready to have sex again.
Well, if you guys are separated yet and no contact, I mean, but I'm just curious what the plan is, because You know, leaving it in the in between, you know, is it, I mean, a year from now, is that, and if, no judgment, but you know, if a year from now you're in the same situation, is that okay? Are you looking for a finite period of time when, you know, and hopefully your addict has been working on his timeline, preparing for disclosure, you know, all of those things, you know, so that when you do have a disclosure, ideally with, you know, qualified professionals, well set up, you know, you are getting what you need to discern, you know, if this is something you can live with, you can move forward with, or, you know, if it's time to move on. So, but okay, next question. What do you think of Recovering Couples Anonymous for marriage recovery? At what stage of my addict's recovery would this be beneficial? How do you balance the amends and work where the addict needs to do the model that RCA has responsibility of both partners? So let's start with, what do you think of Recovering Couples Anonymous, and at what stage in an addict's recovery would this be beneficial?
I don't know all that much about Recovering Couples Anonymous. I know it's a 12-step program for couples. I am not a couple, so I don't know much about it, and it's not even available in Palm Springs where I live. But from my perspective, more generally, recovery works best when it involves therapy and 12-step recovery at the same time. There's a lot of research to that effect. The best outcomes occur when you're in therapy and 12-step recovery. So 12-step recovery should start yesterday. You know, now maybe the addict is already in 12-step recovery, but you'd like to do RCA, and you want to know when to start. I would run that past your therapist if there's a therapist recommending it. Or maybe even contact somebody with RCA and ask them for their thoughts. I don't feel qualified to answer that one because I don't know enough about the program.
Well, so I know enough to be dangerous. So here we go. So I actually went to someone I used to work with was presenting at their big annual conference, and so I was the only single person in the room. It was awkward, but I did learn a lot. And so here's the positives about RCA. You know, it could be easy at a I'm going to use heterosexual couple, male addict, female partner. It would be really easy for a guy addict to go to a meeting and say derogatory things about why his partner isn't blah 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 doing, you know, and why isn't she getting over it and whatever, and even getting support. There are some groups that would support, you know, oh yeah, you know, poor you, you're doing great, and all that. The thing I heard that was positive about Recovering Couples is the two of them are sitting there. So sitting there and saying, you know, well, she's not blah, 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 doesn't really fly, you know? So I think the accountability as a couple, you know, can be useful. I think the socialization with other couples who are going through this can be useful. I do think that there's some benefit for that, but I would not be a proponent of having just RCA. You know, to me, you know, both of you having individual support and then doing RCA as part of that, you know, could be useful. As with any 12-step group, every group has their own personality. So if you have choices for RCA in your area, go check it out. You know, it's one of those, you know, take what you need and leave the rest. But and I don't know, but if they're touting codependence, and you need to do your work and you're codependent and meshed, any of those things, and I don't know what they say, that this is where I really don't know, that would be problematic for me. I really 100% love the prodependence, you know, aspect of there's nothing that you can do or not do that's going to make him, you know, act out. He has an addiction. It's not an excuse, it's a reason, but at some point that's his responsibility. So blaming partners isn't okay in my book or any of our resource books. So hopefully that's a little helpful.
Yeah, that's kind of why I didn't want to answer this, because I don't know if RCA espouses a codependency model, which I am not a fan of at all. Now, you know, because let's scroll back up to the clip. Oh, you zapped chapter, but
Oh, I put it and answered. You can go see it
that's
and
all right.
answered.
My fear was that the betrayed partner would be forced to take some responsibility for the betrayal, which just does not work for me. You know, if I cheat, I cheat. You know, Tami has nothing to do with my decision to cheat. You know, so, but the recovery of the relationship certainly is the responsibility of both parties. Rebuilding, you know, learning to trust each other, rebuilding intimacy, that takes two to tango. But in terms of making amends for the betrayal, that's all on me, because I'm the one who cheated. So
yeah. So I think it's one of those, you know, check it out, see, you know, if you're fortunate enough to have that as an option, it's worth at least exploring. And on couples, let me share more resources. So along with the Sex and Porn Addiction 101 work groups that Scott and Jason lead, one of our dear colleagues is going to be offering a couples workshop starting January 9th. 90 minutes, 6 weeks. All of this can be found on seekingintegrity.com. It's not therapy, but we're going to talk about, you know, communication skills, grieving losses together, healthy sexuality. What does that look like? How do you integrate back? So you can see more on seekingintegrity.com.
yes.
It's hard to keep this serious, but anyway, so check that out. As always, reach out to Tami, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com if you have questions on that. So next question. Oh, and we have a female sex and love addiction group starting in January as well, that Lacey Bentley, who does the female groups on Tuesdays and Thursdays, will be leading that group. So really excited to have something for female sex, porn, and love addicts. So next question. Do you consider polygraph testing as an accurate and useful part of sex addiction treatment and rebuilding trust with the betrayed spouse?
Yes, personally I do, but only as part of disclosure, a formal therapeutic disclosure supervised by a certified sex addiction therapist who's experienced with doing disclosure. Disclosure is not an event, it's a process. You receive questions from the betrayed partner, things that in this case, I'm assuming she wants to know. You write out a formal answer, you share it with your sponsor, you share it with your therapist, you go over it, make sure you're not blaming your betrayed partner for your behavior, things like that. Then there's a session where you both are in the room with at least one therapist, preferably two, sometimes even three, your therapist, her therapist, and a couples therapist. You share the disclosure, there's a brief break, then there's a questions where she can ask questions, you answer questions, and then usually afterward, or sometimes before, you know, there is a sort of brief polygraph that is basically focused on, does the disclosure you're giving cover everything? And I'm a fan of that because, number one, it helps the betrayed partner know that, yes, I got everything. And more importantly, it forces the addict or the betraying partner to make sure everything is included. And then it also helps the relationship because you both know that the full truth is out there. And I think that's incredibly important.
And I have a little different take on polygraph because there is no protocol, there's no real research on this, and it's gotten to be kind of a thing where therapists are doing it because partners are demanding it, but not every person who does polygraphs is really well qualified, so that can be problematic. Some of them do it before the polygraph is given, some of them do it after, and so again, no protocol. So I you know, and I've heard of people that are getting them every year or, you know, every so often or whatever, you know, and honestly, I guess if that's helpful for you, great. You know, I think that there are other ways to rebuild trust, and, you know, and for me, that would be more important than getting, you know, a machine that says, you know, he's not lying in this moment or whatever, you know, so I think I think some partners are absolutely going to demand it, and if that's where you're at, that's where you're at. Some therapists do have it as part of their protocol for disclosure, and if you agree to do a disclosure with them and that's part of their protocol, then you're going to be part of that. So
I'm more a fan of it because it helps the addict become accountable. That's why I like it. If I know I'm going to have to do a polygraph, I'm going to make sure everything's in there. And if I know I'm going to do a maintenance polygraph in 6 months, I have that accountability that I know. Just any extra layer of accountability, I'm a fan of. But polygraphs need to be, Tami makes a good point, need to be conducted by somebody who knows what they're doing, what this type of polygraph is for, and how to conduct it. These polygraphs are usually about 5 questions tops. Just to get a basic reading, and then are you telling the truth? Yes. Okay, we're
yes.
good.
Yeah.
That's the proper kind of polygraph. If they start getting really specific, no, that's the
right. Yeah. Well, or if it's somebody who has done this kind of polygraph, but has nothing in the mental health, has not done any of this.
This is not a murder suspect polygraph.
Right. Yeah. Your police lineup. So it's, I think, I think it depends. So I'm currently in recovery and I've been sober for going on 3 months. Yay. Do you have any advice for SAs who have partners who are also betrayers, having physical, sexual relationships and still not fully disclosing incidents? I feel when I address this, my partner, my work that I consistently try and implement goes out the window. I can understand. How do I reassure that I'm not minimizing my issues with porn addiction and fantasy while trying to address my issues with partner whom betrayed? That it's really tough when you've got 2 people, that have, that's challenging. So what are your thoughts, Scott?
I think this requires a couples therapist. I just don't see, you would be like the 2 most well-adjusted people on earth if you could sit down and have a rational conversation where each of you implements your recovery skills. When you're talking about, I betrayed you, you betrayed me, who's worse, it just turns into, this needs I don't know what to say other than couples therapist. Because communicating about that requires mediation.
Yeah. And you both doing your separate work, and like just a couples therapist who doesn't get all of this, that's way more challenging. So I agree with a qualified couples therapist, but I also so I shared this in Eddie Caparucci's webinar earlier today too, but having and Dr. Roberts talked about this a number of times, having a safe space where you go, okay, every Tuesday night from 7 to 7:30, we're going to talk about our relationship, and we're going to have the safe space to address things. And so it's planned, and it isn't like this could hit me at any given time or whatever. And like Scott was talking about the bookends, I'm going to call my sponsor beforehand, I'm going to call my sponsor afterwards. So you each have your support, but now you've got the safe space where you can listen and hear and and say, okay, I heard you, that's all that I have bandwidth for today. So when we talk on Thursday night, I will have processed this and I will come back, and address this. There's so many tricks that, that would take the defensiveness out, where, like this is planned, this is our time to talk about our relationship things. And it can be, Scott, I really appreciate it. Like I saw you really trying and showing up. It can be good stuff. It doesn't have to just be problems. It can be, here's where here's I'm trying to acknowledge that I see you doing this, great. Then it can also be, and I'm really struggling with this, another thing that Kristen Snowden has me using a lot is the story I tell myself. So the story I tell myself when I see you, talking to your coworker, that used to be someone you were involved with, is that you're doing this, whatever, whatever it is. But the story I'm telling myself, because this is a dangerous territory. And if I'm not getting it validated or checking in, you know, I can make up stuff that is not necessarily true. Now, sometimes it is, you know, I mean, like gaslighted partners have been told a zillion times that what they are believing isn't true. So all of that, you know, is challenging when both of you, you know, are the betrayer and both of you have to work on changing. You know, hopefully you're getting outside support and able to acknowledge where you see positives without just, you know, pointing fingers. So
yeah, I think this is a good question to hang on to. If you can take it to Dr. Rob on Monday night, also 5 p.m. Pacific. He might have some thoughts on that.
he would have some
He's
thoughts on
probably
that.
seen that before.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, I would highly encourage you to do so.
Yeah.
Any other questions, thoughts?
Got stuff in the chat features. Have you checked
Oh,
that? I haven't looked.
Well, somebody, and I don't know how to, like, I know when I have control, I can change names of participants. I don't know if they can, but somebody wanted to change their name. So let's see.
Oh, you can do it on yourself. You can just go to more and change it.
Oh,
your names will not show up.
yeah,
on
I see that. I
by the
can,
way.
yes. So
yeah.
yes, you can change it. Like I just clicked on the next to my mute, the 3 little dots, and it says rename. So I'm not going to, because I'm comfortable with who I am. Wow, that's a thought.
But our Q&A and our chat feature don't show up on.
Okay. Okay, so how do I become more aware of when I am in the middle circle activity? Sometimes I'm oblivious and my wife, betrayed partner, sees it as plain as day. Is this normal, and what can I do about it?
Yeah, middle circle is, we create our 3-circle plan. You know, the inner circle is our bottom line behaviors, the things that we as a sex addict or an addict no longer want to do. You know, if we engage in these behaviors, we need to reset our sobriety clock, et cetera, et cetera. The middle circle or middle boundary is slippery stuff. It's the behaviors and thoughts and feelings that can lead us back into the inner circle. By the way, the inner circle is behaviors only. We don't put thoughts, we don't put feelings in the inner circle. We're not the mind police. We don't lose our sobriety because a thought came into our head, because we thought about doing an inner circle behavior. We lose our sobriety because we do an inner circle behavior. The middle circle is the slippery stuff, driving through certain neighborhoods, going online when you're home alone, being home alone, traveling for work, keeping secrets, telling lies. That's slippery behavior. Some people have secrets and lies in the inner boundary, by the way, but most people have it in the middle. And it's just more of a slowly developing awareness. You know, and that's why we write these things down, and in circle plans, we sign them like they're a written contract. And I carried my circle plan with me in my wallet, a folded up version, for 2 years. And I would pull it out and read it every so often, mostly to look for outer circle activities, things I could do in a moment. But I would also review my inner circle and middle circle, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I told a lie this morning. Ugh, I need to right that wrong. I need to come clean about that. Oh, you know, I drove through that neighborhood again. I'm not supposed to do that. It's slippery for me. It's more a slow awareness. And yeah, your wife may say, you were looking at that waitress a little too long, or whatever it is that you just did, and you're not aware of it, because you've spent a long time being not aware of those behaviors. So yeah, it's a process. And you know, this is why it takes couples, you know, a year or more usually to rebuild trust after a betrayal, is because, you know, you slowly get better. You can, you know, intend to be rigorously honest and intend to follow your plan perfectly, but you're not going to do either. You will catch yourself, she will catch you, you know, but you'll slowly get better. So yeah, a lot of couples with lies and secrets, by the way, will implement a boundary. If I realize I told you a lie, I have 24 hours to come clean about lying. okay, when I told you I took the trash out, but I hadn't, I lied, I'm sorry. You know, I took the trash out immediately after I told you that I'd taken it out. You know, you can get mad that I didn't take the trash out when I was supposed to, but as long as I come clean within 24 hours about the lie, you agree to let me slide on it, you know, because I'm aware of it and I'm correcting it, because it's a process. So,
Well, and I've said, you know, it's probably 23 hours, you know, 59 minutes the first time, but hopefully it gets faster so that Scott, you know, 10 minutes ago when I told you I took out the trash and I lied, you know, and so that window gets shorter. Our clinical director, and I love this, it says, tell the truth and tell it faster. And I thought only to addicts do you have to say, tell the truth and tell it faster. And, you know, that's a constant theme, you know, for us. You know, I was thinking if you're so bold, it would, you know, like tell your partner, thank you for noticing that. I wasn't aware. I want to be more aware of that. So, you know, even if there's a code word, you know, that you guys come up with in case you're in public or whatever, but the between the two of you that you go, okay, you know, like, yeah, I was looking a little too long at that person or whatever, you know, but I want to be different, and how I'm going to be different is, you know, people outside of me. I've had my husband, you know, bless his heart, he's a brave man. You know, during COVID early on, he was like, I think you should call your therapist, because I don't see my therapist all the time now. And I was like, he's right, because you know, because when he's brave enough to tell me stuff, you know, he's told me, you know, I think you should go to a meeting. Brave man, you know, because my first reaction is nobody's going to tell me when to go to a meeting or not go to a meeting or whatever. And I just was like, thank you, I think I will. And you know, so any of those things, it's information, and if I can take it as the data that somebody who cares about me is willing to say, you know, I kind of think you were whatever, or you might need to call your sponsor, you know, have you, you know, whatever. I mean, if you can take it in and not have the reaction of nobody's going to tell me what to do, it's really valuable. Like I said, I give them kudos for being able to.
yeah, I remember when I was in early recovery, one of the first times I went home to see my family, and I don't know, about midway through the third day, my mother looked at me and said, so do you need to go to a meeting while you're home? I was like, yeah, I guess I do.
and what a gift that they're everywhere, you know, I mean, honestly, and now they're all online, but what a gift that, you know, because I used to travel a lot there, you know, there's meetings everywhere, and you know, like I met interesting people and had great experiences, and you know, I mean, it's just it's such a gift. And I was fortunate to go to a meeting today instead of Zoom, and one of the things, like for me, because it's how I grew up in this program, was just sitting down in the chair, and you know, like I get into a very different place, and I'm grateful for that. And with the computer, I've got two screens, so it's too easy for me to go, oh, I'll just take care of a few emails and things like that. I have to try so much harder to stay focused, you know, when I'm doing a Zoom. I do it, but I have to try harder, so it's just different. So
Okay.
I don't see any other questions, so
All right.
well, thank you for letting me pop in tonight and join you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Tami, for helping out tonight. I'm not very good by myself, so I like other people.
It's really hard. Rob's internet went down one night, and I ended up doing like half the meeting by myself, and I just feel like it's way too much me. And so I appreciate the other perspectives and information, and you know, we're grateful that all of you hung out with us this evening, and hopefully you got something. And so tomorrow morning we've got the new Betrayed Partners group starting at 8:30 in the morning Pacific time. There's a men's group at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and then Friday morning there's another men's group. And then Super Saturday Recovery Summit, I got to give a plug because I'm the hostess for the events on Super Saturday Recovery Summit on www.intherooms.com. Dr. David's on that platform on Tuesday nights with a chemsex group, and Dr. Rob is on Friday night. He's been doing that for like 4 years and has like 200 people every Friday night. So so grateful for that. But again, join me on Super Saturday Recovery Summit, all free. We've got some great topics again this week coming up. So, all right.
Great. Thank you,
Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you next week. I think David will be back, so we'll be back to our normal go, and it'll be Thanksgiving Eve. So
yes, we can get zenned out and prepared. So, all right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.